For months, the internet has been caught up in a single question that refuses to fade away. Something that started as a few casual observations has now grown into a full-blown celebrity discussion. Is there really something happening between Common and Jennifer Hudson? At first, it didn't seem like anything serious. Just a couple of public appearances. A few shared moments in interviews. Nothing that would normally raise eyebrows in Hollywood, where celebrities interact all the time. But the public has a way of noticing what isn't explicitly said, and in this case, it was the subtle energy between them that sparked curiosity. Fans began picking up on small details. The way they looked at each other during conversations. The comfort in their body language. The slightly longer pauses in their smiles. Nothing dramatic on its own, but when combined, it started to feel like something more than just professional familiarity. Then came the shift. Interviews that once felt purely promotional began to carry a different tone. Conversations became more personal. The atmosphere between them appeared lighter, warmer, almost effortless. And in the age of social media, where every second of footage is replayed, slowed down, and analyzed, it didn't take long for people to start building theories. Soon, timelines were filled with speculation. Screenshots were being shared. Fans were breaking down body language like detectives. Some were convinced it was just friendship being misunderstood. Others believed something deeper was clearly forming behind the scenes. As always, once the internet decides on a narrative, it spreads quickly. What may have started as harmless curiosity soon turned into a trending topic. People weren't just asking if something was going on anymore, they were asking what exactly it was. Before the speculation could spiral further, Common eventually addressed the conversation in his own calm and measured way. He didn't dismiss the attention, nor did he try to create distance in a dramatic fashion. Instead, when asked about Jennifer Hudson, his response was thoughtful and respectful. He spoke about her in a way that immediately stood out. Rather than avoiding the question or giving a generic answer, he openly expressed admiration. According to him, Jennifer Hudson is not just talented, but genuinely extraordinary as a person. He described her as someone with a powerful presence, not just because of her fame or achievements, but because of who she is at her core. He emphasized that her beauty goes far beyond appearance. For him, what makes her truly remarkable is her character, her energy, and the way she carries herself. He spoke about her as someone who naturally uplifts those around her, someone with a strong and inspiring spirit. Those comments alone were enough to ignite even more conversation online. The moment his words were shared, social media lit up again. Fans began dissecting every sentence, every tone, every implication. What exactly did he mean? Was this just admiration, or something more personal? Almost instantly, the bigger question returned with even more force. Could Jennifer Hudson be the person who finally changes Common's long-known relationship pattern? To understand why this question matters so much to the public, you have to look at Common's romantic history. Over the years, he has been linked with several well-known women in the entertainment industry. Each relationship attracted attention, and each one eventually became part of a larger narrative that followed him for years. That narrative suggested a pattern. A belief that Common tends to enjoy the early stages of romance, the excitement, the emotional spark, the thrill of new connection, but struggles when relationships transition into something more stable and long-term. This idea wasn't just fan speculation. It was something Common himself has openly acknowledged in past interviews. He has spoken honestly about how, in earlier phases of his life, he often found himself drawn to the intensity of new relationships. The beginning stages, with all their passion and discovery, felt deeply engaging for him. But he also admitted something more personal and reflective. Once that initial excitement faded and relationships entered a phase that required consistency, emotional stability, and long-term commitment, he sometimes found himself pulling away. That level of honesty is not something celebrities often share so openly. Instead of blaming circumstances or past partners, Common turned the focus inward. He recognized that there was a repeating cycle in his emotional life, one that he could no longer ignore. He later explained that therapy played a significant role in helping him understand this pattern more clearly. Through self-reflection, he began to see how his relationships often followed a familiar structure. First came the strong emotional connection. Then followed the honeymoon phase, where everything felt exciting and effortless. But eventually, as the relationship required deeper emotional labor, patience, and routine effort, something inside him would hesitate. This kind of self-awareness changed how many people viewed him. Instead of labeling him as someone simply unable to commit, the public began to see a man who was actively trying to understand himself and grow beyond his past behavior. And that is exactly why his connection with Jennifer Hudson became such a point of fascination. Unlike many Hollywood relationships that begin with publicity, flashy appearances, or highly visible romantic gestures, their dynamic appeared to develop in a much quieter and more natural way. There were no dramatic yacht photos. No overly staged vacation headlines. No constant paparazzi coverage suggesting a manufactured romance for publicity. Instead, their connection seemed to grow gradually, away from the loudest spotlight. One of the key foundations of their bond is something they both share: Chicago roots. That shared background gave them an immediate point of connection, something deeper than surface-level attraction or industry proximity. Their professional lives also overlapped. Through music, film projects, and public appearances, they found themselves in similar spaces. Over time, working together created opportunities for genuine interaction. Not rushed or forced, but steady and organic. In many ways, it was this slow development that made their chemistry feel more authentic to observers. Instead of a sudden public announcement, what people saw was a gradual buildup of comfort, familiarity, and mutual respect. At first, their interactions were subtle. A shared laugh during interviews. A relaxed exchange during promotional events. Moments that didn't scream romance, but also didn't feel purely professional either. Naturally, fans noticed. And once they noticed, the speculation cycle began again. But even then, neither Common nor Jennifer Hudson rushed to confirm or deny anything publicly. They allowed the conversation to exist without directly feeding into it. And in the world of celebrity culture, silence often creates even more curiosity. By early 2024, that silence finally shifted. Common made a statement that immediately caught public attention. In a moment that quickly spread across entertainment media, he referred to Jennifer Hudson in deeply affectionate terms, calling her his happy place. That single phrase changed everything. It was no longer just fan interpretation or speculative analysis. It was a direct, emotional expression from him. For many people following the story, that was the moment where the relationship moved from rumor territory into something far more real. And once that happened, the conversation naturally evolved again, this time toward a new question. Are they heading toward something permanent? Once Common publicly referred to Jennifer Hudson as his happy place, the entire tone of the conversation around them shifted. What had once been quiet speculation suddenly turned into a headline-level story. The internet no longer treated it as a rumor, it treated it as something unfolding in real time. And as always with celebrity relationships, once a connection becomes public in even a subtle way, the questions multiply almost instantly. The first wave of curiosity is always simple: are they together or not? But once that is even partially answered, the second wave begins, far more intense and far more invasive. People start asking how serious it is, how long it will last, and eventually, whether marriage is on the horizon. That is exactly what happened with Common and Jennifer Hudson. Almost immediately after his comment went viral, fans began analyzing every public interaction between them. Every interview clip, every event appearance, every shared moment suddenly carried new meaning. What once looked like casual friendliness was now being reinterpreted as hidden confirmation of romance. Even the smallest gestures became evidence in the court of public opinion. A glance held for a second too long. A smile exchanged during a group conversation. a moment of ease in body language. All of it was magnified, discussed, and dissected across social media platforms. But despite all the excitement, one important detail remained unchanged: there was still no official confirmation of an engagement or long-term commitment. And that distinction mattered more than most fans realized. Because in celebrity culture, there is often a gap between perception and reality. Just because a relationship appears meaningful does not mean it has reached a formal milestone. Hope and interpretation often move faster than actual events. Still, the public narrative kept building momentum. Part of that momentum came from Common himself. In later interviews, he began speaking more openly about his personal evolution. He didn't go into details about his relationship with Jennifer Hudson directly, but he did reflect on how his perspective on love had changed over time. He admitted that earlier in his life, he saw relationships differently. Back then, he was more focused on the emotional highs, the excitement of new love, the intensity of attraction, and the thrill of connection. Those early stages of romance felt powerful and consuming. However, he also acknowledged something important. Over time, he began to realize that love is not only about passion. It is also about consistency, patience, and emotional responsibility. And that shift in understanding did not happen overnight. It came through experience, reflection, and personal growth. Common has been open about the fact that therapy played a key role in this transformation. Through that process, he started identifying patterns in his behavior that he had previously overlooked. He recognized a cycle that repeated itself across different relationships. At first, everything would feel exciting and new. The connection would form quickly, and the emotional intensity would be strong. That phase, the honeymoon stage, would often feel like the most natural part of the relationship for him. But as time passed and the relationship required more stability, structure, and long-term effort, something would begin to shift internally. The excitement would fade, and instead of deepening commitment, hesitation would sometimes take its place. This level of honesty surprised many people. In an industry where public figures often carefully control their narratives, Common's willingness to reflect on his own emotional patterns made him appear more self-aware and grounded. Rather than blaming past partners or external circumstances, he took responsibility for his own emotional journey. That alone changed how many fans viewed him, not as someone avoiding commitment, but as someone actively trying to understand it. And that context is what made his connection with Jennifer Hudson feel different to many observers. Unlike many celebrity relationships that seem to move at a rapid pace, full of public declarations, flashy appearances, and highly visible romantic gestures, this one developed slowly and quietly. There was no dramatic announcement. No carefully staged couple reveal. No attention-seeking rollout designed for publicity. Instead, what people observed was something much more subtle. Their connection seemed to grow in a natural environment. Through shared professional spaces, mutual respect, and overlapping creative worlds, they gradually became closer. It wasn't forced into the spotlight, it emerged from within it. Both Common and Jennifer Hudson share Chicago roots, which created an immediate foundation of familiarity. That shared background is more than just geography, it represents culture, upbringing, and identity. It gave them something real to connect on beyond fame or industry status. Their professional lives also brought them together in meaningful ways. Working in entertainment, through music, film, and public appearances, meant they often found themselves in similar circles. Over time, those repeated interactions created opportunities for genuine conversation and connection. What made their dynamic stand out to fans was how effortless it appeared. There was no visible tension, no performative energy, and no overly staged behavior. Instead, there was ease, comfort, familiarity that seemed to deepen over time. At first, the public wasn't even sure what they were witnessing. Some believed it was simply friendship. Others suspected something more. But without confirmation, everything remained open to interpretation. And that ambiguity only fueled curiosity further. As clips from interviews and events circulated online, people began to notice small but consistent patterns. The way they engaged with each other felt different from typical celebrity interactions. It wasn't overly formal, but it also wasn't purely casual. It existed somewhere in between, where genuine connection often begins. Naturally, speculation grew louder. Are they just close friends? Are they dating privately? Or is something more serious developing behind the scenes? For a long time, neither of them gave a clear answer. Instead, they allowed the conversation to exist without directly addressing it. And in the age of constant online attention, silence can often be interpreted in many different ways. For some fans, it meant privacy. For others, it meant confirmation without words. And for others still, it meant nothing at all. But everything changed when Common eventually spoke in a more direct and personal way.